Chess lovers, we just finished recording a long session with Andras Toth where we guessed the move of a game between Fischer and Spassky. We laid down our thoughts as open as possible. We thought out loud during this training. At times it might have felt chaotic. The game was also unconventional and contained so many crazy moments where real calculation and analysis were required. Guess the move is a very effective and yet underutilized chess training techniques. You just take an instructive master game and you start from move 1 all the way to the end. You try to guess the move of the master for each and every decision. If your guess is incorrect, then you get a second chance and so on. If your guess is correct, then the opponent's move is played automatically. Normally, you do it for the entire game, and after the game, you check your analysis and your guesses with the engine and ideally with the thoughts of the master themselves. So please do it with a book containing master's thoughts and annotations. Then you can get that additional layer of feedback. This is a very active form of chess training because instead of looking at the moves in terms of like passive learning, you try to actively engage with the material and simulate master's thought process and ask questions. Why did we go wrong? What was wrong with my move? Why did master play that way? You always want to, of course, seek this why information. Please watch until the end because later after the game, we checked with chess.com engine our thoughts and our moves. We remembered which guesses we made during the game and we compared that with the engine. Occasionally, our guesses were even stronger than the game continuations, and those moments really made us happy. Some moments also made us very humble. For example, Spassky's moment of playing one break was totally outside of our radar. That also shows how super grandmasters, world champions differ from us mortals. I thought out loud, Andras Toth thought out loud, so we can also compare how Canary Master and International Master differs in terms of the thought process. Seeing and observing a stronger player thinking out loud is one of the most effective ways of improving your game, especially for beginners, club players, and improvers. So while our ego was crushed while we were guessing the moves of Spassky, after this session, we got happy again once we saw some of our guesses were even stronger than the real game continuation. And please let me know if you observe some moves or ideas which was missed by us, which you thought was the main point of Spassky in this game. Please tell your ideas in the comments below. Another advantage of Guess the Move is it's a mix of positional and tactical decisions, right? You're simulating a real game environment. Most of our decisions in a real game are not tactical. You form a plan, you play positional chess, you improve a piece. This training contains every single decision and different types of decisions, just like in a real game. So Andras had to go to sleep in Australia. Please let me know what kind of other lessons you draw from this game. We could have spent maybe one more hour just to have those basic general lessons that we can draw from this game. And you can even do this training in a physical board with a book by covering the moves of the grandmaster, by thinking yourself first, going deeply into positions, writing down your guesses, even some lines that you calculated, and later checking with the real game continuation, engine, and the master's own annotations. But don't be too harsh on yourself. Chess is hard. You see how we have struggled in guessing the moves of Spassky. Our ego was crushed at some point, and yet after the game, we sort of got some of our confidence back by learning that a couple of our ideas were not terrible at all. Now I will leave you with International Master Andras Toth and Fischer versus Spassky 1992. Hello dear chess lovers, we are doing hardcore guess the move training today with the great legendary chess coach Andras Toth. Andras, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Pleasure to be back.
Yes, Andras, it's always fun to talk to you. Today we are doing it like a spontaneous format. We are both very busy, but still quite fun to do chess training with you. I wanted to allocate this session for a guess the move training. We will guess the moves of Spassky against Fischer. As you know, Spassky recently died, so also to his legacy, we try to simulate his game against Bobby Fischer in 1992 match in Belgrade. All right, Andras, do you agree?
Yep,
That's a good choice.
That sounds golden for me, friend.
Yes.
That sounds golden.
And as we go through the moves, as we try to guess the moves, we can either take turns, for who will make the first guess. We can share ideas, because I think it's very important for our audience to also listen to our thinking, listen to our approach. We don't know this game by heart, by the way. I chose it spontaneously. I don't remember the moves myself. And we basically try to simulate our thoughts as much as possible, just to lay out those thoughts so people can get value. And meanwhile, we'll also talk about generally how to analyze your games. We'll have some discussions along the way as well, like for how intermediate players can improve by looking at some master games. What lessons can be drawn by people when they analyze games of the masters. Yeah, let's try to keep it at this level today in terms of content. All right, folks?
You forgot to tell me that I needed to pack 2 days full of food, by the way, and, a sleeping bag, but okay. Let's go ahead.
Let's go ahead, sir. Yes, it will be a long session today. Hopefully the game is not so long. I mean, maybe it's like, 55 moves or something. We'll see. Well, Spassky was a Spanish player, right, Andras? What do you say? Do you expect Spanish?
Russian.
Russian, yes, Russian. Yeah, okay.
Rui Lopez, for sure. Rui, come on. He was
Rui,
one of the greatest masters of the Breyer. Actually.
He is a Breyer master, and Breyer is from your hometown, right? From Hungary.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
So you must know Breyer inside out, my friend. So
Precisely.
let's simulate. Of course, Fischer, best by test. He's a Spanish player himself, even in 1992, right? All right, so far so easy. Castle short. We play bishop e7 first, I believe, right? We play bishop e7 first.
Makes no difference.
Rook e1. Makes no difference, right? And here, b5 or castle short, what do you say? b5
no,
is
because
the
now
main.
e5 is hanging, right?
a5 is hanging, so we must play b5 first. That's 100% correct. Well,
he used to play. Spassky usually played d6 here. He didn't.
Spassky usually play d6. Let's see. Yeah. Well, my man.
So he didn't float the Marshall threat.
Exactly.
Mind you, he used to play Marshall too.
He used to play Marshall as well. Yes, Spassky was also a Marshall player. Yes.
Yeah. He was an expert. Yeah, for sure.
Right. So now we see Tabiya, Spanish Rui Lopez, guys. For those of you who don't know this setup, of course, one of the biggest, Tabiyas in chess openings. Very classical, very correct in some sense. Why do they play h3? Andras, of course, you know it by heart, to stop bishop g4s, right? Because white wants to expand in the center of the board. For some reason, I cannot draw arrows, but we can talk about, this d4 idea for white, of course. And they don't want to see bishop g4. And Breyer is knight b8, right? Right, Andras?
Yep,
knight b8 is the Breyer. Knight a5 is Chigorin. I mean, we can talk about this position like for 2 hours. But okay, wow, good. We guessed it correctly. He plays Breyer.
Yeah, it was Breyer. Yeah, knight d7.
Knight d7, of course, yeah. Okay, so the function of this maneuver, by the way, for those of you who don't know it, the knight was a little bit misplaced. Also, it paves way for the c-pawn to move. Bishop b7 ideas are there, right? The knight sort of paves way for all these ideas. So that's why he wastes 2 tempo, let's say. Knight d2 by Fischer. What do you say, Andras?
Can I tell you a fun story?
Yes.
So you know how this match was followed by a Judith Polgar-Spassky match in Hungary in 1993.
That's right.
In one of those games, they had the exact same position that we have on the board now, and Spassky made a mouse slip and played rook e8.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So in this position, he played rook e8 instead of, let's say, the main line, bishop b7, right?
Bishop
b7 is the main line, yes. And what was so terrible about the move rook e8, Andras, if you explain to us? Is knight g5s or something, or what?
No, bishop takes f7 and
bishop f7. Okay. Wait. And then knight g5 too? Oh, come on. And knight e6.
I'm not kidding. Trapped. The whole entire room went completely silent and everyone was like...
God, wait, yes.
And Judith just instantly played, I think, a4, and after bishop b7, we were back in theory. And both of the... I think Spassky might have noticed during the game. Judith definitely didn't. And the game went on. Yeah.
That's insane. Guys, I cannot draw arrows, but please visualize. That's good visualization. Rook e8, bishop f7 check, king f7, knight g5 check, followed by knight e6, traps the queen on d8 at that moment.
That's a smothered mate for the queen.
That's a mother mate for the queen. That's amazing.
Yeah, look, it happens. But it would have been so awkward. Not embarrassing is not even the right word for this. It would have been very awkward.
Yeah, because but even for legends, these mistakes happen.
Exactly. So I'm actually glad, and I'm almost certain that Judith is happy that she was so in the game that she didn't even assume that something was amiss, and just went on. And I think it was actually quite a long game, and I'm not even sure.
This is so amazing because the queen gets trapped because the knight already sits on d7, Andras, right? Because in the other main line, the knight is never on d7, yeah. So
well, or the bishop on c8. That's why bishop
is on
c8
c8
first.
Yes. It's amazing.
So
that's why we must know the whys behind the moves, right? So that it comes back to it. And there are so many tactical ideas, like recurrent patterns in our openings. We must be careful. That's why bishop b7. Spassky plays correctly here.
Yeah.
Fischer
and now
plays
rook
bishop
e8.
c2. Now rook e8 is definitely a good move. Are there any other candidates, Andras, here? Like, can we justify c5, for example, directly, or rook e8 is definitely a helpful move for us?
No, I think c5 is completely fine here too.
Yeah, let's try. By the way, it's called non-theory over here, so just for you to see what's going on the right side. Yeah, so far excellent. We are doing like 100%. 24 out of 24 points we got. Okay, that's cool. Knight f1 by Fischer.
Yeah, all
Knight
theory.
f1. All theory so far. Okay. Okay, so rook e8 was the main. He wants to go to g3, of course. Typical maneuver with that knight in roue. Bishop f8, right? We want to also maybe intensify the pressure on e4. That comes to mind. Bishop f8.
Yep,
You agree, right? Let me try. Bishop f8, yes. Later on, g6 and bishop g7 ideas are also there, right? To tame the knight on g3 and so on.
Correct. Correct.
Knight
However,
g2
I
by
think the
Fischer.
move here is c5.
Yeah, so again, like c5 is definitely one of our ideas behind knight d7 to put more pressure in the center. If they go d5, we can go c4 and knight c5. Typical Breyer idea as well.
Yep.
We're not in a hurry with g6, right? Because, I mean, knight f5 is not a real threat in this position.
Yeah, that's
We can
what I'm
always do
thinking
later.
now. Whether c5, maybe dc, knight f5, and then knight d6, maybe I think. But I have rook e6, which is very commonplace in the roue. Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah, I think c5 is good. c5, d5.
Let's go
g6,
for
I
c5.
think.
Let's go for
Yeah.
c5. Oh, he didn't
No?
play c5. He played g6 instead.
G6.
Interesting.
Oh, okay,
Interesting. But you see, even our move was theory, Andras. You see,
Oh,
this
okay,
move is
yeah.
theory. So I think they will transpose somehow. It's not like a terrible move. Cool.
Yeah. Now there is a big debate
Yeah.
here amongst the Breyer fans whether h6 is needed or not.
Yes, I remember. I also played Breyer at some point in my life. I remember that debate. Because I guess the drawback of h6 is that at some point it will be hit, right? With queen d2, bishop e3, and so on.
Yeah,
And
so
we
h6, bishop h3, and then no matter what we play, queen d2 is going to come with the tempo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it depends whether it actually serves white or black. Yes.
Interestingly, by the way, it's a cool thing to mention because this way, I guess your audience also understands much better about the understanding of these players. Spassky absolutely trashed Portish in this opening with reverse colors. There is a very, very famous Spassky Portish game in the Breyer where Portish played h6, then h5.
Yeah.
When the pawn got hit, and later on he got absolutely demolished with a kingside sack. I think it was a knight h5 sack, and somehow just Spassky's pieces flooded the kingside. It was an absolute carnage.
Beautiful.
So that demonstrates to you how you become a real master of a certain opening when you play with both colors, and so you understand the pros, the cons, the relevant plans, yada yada yada. That was a biggie.
That's actually a very good point. Maybe the biggest lesson from this. Yeah. So if you play the opening with both colors, definitely your understanding improves. I mean, you know.
Yeah. Usually it's funny. Usually people feel awkward about the one point in their repertoire where there is an overlap, right? Like, you know, no matter what openings you play, it's inevitable that there is one opening at least that you play with both colors.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
There is one point. Now, it's up to you entirely where you choose that point to be. But usually people feel very bad about it because they feel like they have a split personality where if I play with both, then if I'm better with white, I'm by definition worse with black in the same. So how do I resolve this? But I always looked upon it as that's my greatest strength because I understand it the best and probably I played the most too.
That's a great point. I'm just thinking about Fischer, for example. You know, he kept playing Najdorf in his life, but he was also playing against Najdorf, right, with the white pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. He was using this bishop c4 line, of course, which was his
it
line,
must suck for the London players because then they 90% of their life they are playing London. But to be a bit more serious and not always having a go at the Londonistas, if you play system openings, then it becomes a more frequent occurrence than if you have a wide repertoire.
For sure.
Obviously.
That's the main advantage of system openings, for sure.
One of them, yeah.
One
Also,
of them.
not advantage, it's a downside.
Only.
It's fine.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I think
okay.
it's a downside that
Okay.
you are playing it all the time because it becomes boring. And
It's sort of, I mean, yeah, but the justification is that, okay, you're looking at similar patterns, and if you know them
Yeah,
inside
yeah, yeah,
out
for
by
sure.
heart, you know, that's the main, like maybe the only advantage of that.
Oh,
But,
yeah, for sure. No, I merely was stating that you will see the same opening a lot more frequently.
Right. Okay, coming back to this position, Andras, bishop g5. Is this pin annoying for us? Should we break it? That's the main discussion, of course, with h6 directly. Or if not h6, what are the candidates? I mean, should we ignore and play c5? Does white have a clear threat after bishop g5, in fact? Like, should we care
Well,
about
they
this?
just are going to play queen d2, and that means that h6
Right.
is removed from
Is
the
removed
equation
from the
forever.
picture.
And that's
Yes.
annoying. So, yes, h6, please.
h6, yes, let's go for it. Spassky plays h6, bishop d2 by bishop. I thought bishop e3 was more common,
They
but
are,
okay.
Yeah, they are both theoretical. They're both theoretical.
Yes. Okay. Bishop d2. Does it mean that we can now focus on our play on the queen side with c5 expansion right now and focus there, or maybe bishop g7 is a useful move to start with, or what are your observations?
My gut is telling me to play c5.
Typical move, of course.
Yeah, I would play c5.
Yeah, c5 definitely is definitely in our interest on the queen side. Guys, you see like how they are keeping the tension, by the way. That's good for beginner players. Like for a long time, this tension between these two pawns are kept, right? So both sides don't relinquish tension, but he puts pressure on this pawn in center with c5 most likely. Okay, apparently c5 is theory, but wow, he first take on d4. This will be interesting, Andras. I think it's a major transformation of the pawn structure.
Yeah,
And
because now c5 d5 is going to land us in a potential...
Benoni, right?
Yeah, well, Benoni, but I was going to make a connection there with the Zaitsev, Rui Lopez.
Even Zaitsev, Lopez, yes, with bishop b7s, of course. I guess this actually connects to one of their games in 1972. Do you remember that game? Fischer crushed Spassky in Breyer with white. This famous knight b1 game, you know, he played, he tripled the pieces on the a file. There was a4 and b5 pawns, and then he played knight d2 and all the way to b1 to a3,
B1, A3
to attack.
Yeah, to undermine b5. That's
Yes,
right.
I think maybe we can even make connection to that game, because I think Spassky learned some lessons from that loss, and I think he changes the pawn structure to sort of get a better version of that. Actually, interesting. So
now I'm
if
trying
not
to
c5,
decide now if we should play c5 or bishop g7.
Yeah, because the bishop definitely improves on that diagonal now.
Because now we need to, because if we played ED-CD, now as black we have to reckon with e5.
E5 indeed.
Because we surrender the center. But I think e5 is well met by d, bishop f3, and then e5 drops.
Right.
But to make it very, very safe and sound and solid, I would give some support to that knight on f6 with bishop g7 first, and maybe after c5.
Yeah, because c5 we can always play, right? White cannot prevent it, so bishop g7 definitely is an improvement.
Unless there is bishop g7 d5, and then...
Bishop g7 even d5. Okay, that's interesting. With some knight d4 ideas, maybe to grip on c6 and so on, and leave the backward pawn on c7. That's interesting.
Having said that, even if you in that position, I still play c5 and you unpass on me. Most people freak out about the d6 pawn in these structures, especially with both long black bishops on long diagonals. Black usually has more pressure on e4 than white can ever build on d6.
That's right. I also played some similar structure with black. I know exactly what you mean. I will still play c5 in this position. Since e5 is not a threat right now, I will probably play c5 to begin with and take it from there. That's my hunch. But okay, we'll see. First go with your idea. Bishop g7 was your idea. Let's see. What is... Your move is okay. Okay, that's interesting. But apparently he played c5 directly.
c5,
okay.
yeah. Fair. And now bishop g7. Oh,
now bishop g7?
Yes. Yeah. No, sorry. No, that's
okay.
In my book a no-brainer, but I'm happy to be wrong.
Bishop g7, of course, right?
Yeah.
Wow, he plays knight b6.
Whoa,
plays knight b6. Okay, this is strange.
Go back a bit.
This is strange.
Go back a bit. I want to understand what's cooking here.
Yeah, because... Can I even go back? Let's see. Can I even go back? Okay, I can go back. Let's look at this position. Knight b6. What can be the point of knight b6?
I mean, knight c4 is pending, right?
Knight c4 is pending, yes.
Because bishop c3, b4, so you have to go to an awkward square.
Yes.
But first and foremost, I don't know what we would do after knight b6, b3.
Yes, b3.
Which Fischer didn't do, apparently. I am not excited about that position whatsoever.
Okay.
Maybe a5, maybe a5, a4. But I feel like we are so far away from the center, like bishop c3, and then, I don't know, that feels... That being said, with knight on b6, white's chances to break with e5 are essentially zero.
He puts pressure on d5, yeah, that's the basic claim.
But bishop g7 just feels so
It's
darn
so right,
good.
so right, yeah. I wonder why. I mean, what could be the point of keeping the bishop on f8 in this position still?
Yeah, that's the other thing, that knight b6 doesn't seem to be...
Somehow less flexible, right? Yeah, because knight is doing
preventable.
something on d7 still.
Yeah.
It's maybe that's not even the best move according to, let's say, engine. Yeah,
I was about to say that, not that I am, I'm more than happy to admit that I got beaten, but I would be very curious to know what the
But look at the feedback. You played bishop g7. This move is theory. Apparently, bishop g7 is theory, but he played knight b6 instead in the actual game.
So
That's what
both you and I played a better move than Spassky. Thank you.
Yay! Yes, bishop e5 by Fischer, of course. Okay, so pinning the knight.
Well, I guess knight fd7 is now the hunch move to sort of relieve the pain of the pin and be able to move the queen out of it and then move the knight again.
That's right. Otherwise, there's the queen moving. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, there is no imminent threat, so I could technically play bishop g7 first too.
Exactly. There is no direct threat we are facing.
But somehow knight fd7 feels just more natural to me.
Yeah. Let's put it on the board. This was his concept. Okay. Knight e7. Now he plays b3 to limit the knight on b6. Let's say.
Ooh, I have an interesting question here. Oh, no, I don't. I wanted to say that I wonder who is going to outsmart whom if we play b4 with black.
The claim is the bishop is sort of trapped on a5
Right.
or what?
But then I realized that white might have a3.
Yes. To, let's say, rescue the bishop.
And then if I play bishop g7, I was a little bit concerned about white just giving up the exchange and taking on b4. And giving up a1. It may be a little bit airy-fairy. But that's something that occurred to me. But bishop g7 obviously is the knee-jerk reaction.
Knee-jerk reaction, right? Yeah.
Having said that, again, I would like to stress that my purpose when I play bishop g7 in this position with black is mostly to improve the bishop. If white played something nondescript, I wouldn't instantly take on a1.
Yeah, the exchange sacrifice could be considered by white, sure.
So I'm not playing bishop g7 with the primary objective of forcing the rook to move.
Yes, yeah.
I don't think that it's sound, but I also wouldn't rule it out. So when I play bishop g7, I am aware of the fact that the rook might not move. But I just simply claim that my bishop stands infinitely better on g7 than anywhere else on the board. I'm covering e5, d4, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And we will see. So that's
right.
what I would do.
Yes, one drawback of b4 is of course positional Andras, right? Because we have like 3 versus 2 on the queen side, and somehow, it's less flexible when you push the pawn to
yeah,
b4.
Yeah, for sure. Then again, I think I would have access to c4 at one point. So,
right,
but yeah, it's definitely hurting the pawns for sure.
Yeah, let's try bishop g7. That's what he played. Cool.
Yeah, rook c1.
Rook c1.
Now is roughly the time when, and I think it's important to highlight this, that this is the position where I think above a certain level, you realize that this is the moment when we ran out of obvious moves. That's the point.
Yes, let's discuss this.
Like
yes.
all minors are on optimal squares, and there is no, and now obviously this. And even when we did get it wrong, we played a very good move earlier on almost all occasions, right? But here, this would be the first time when I would need to seriously list candidates.
Beautiful.
And reason. So far, I didn't feel the need to justify. I just spoke out my thoughts. But to myself, bishop g7 was mandatory, right?
Yes.
But now, I need to convince myself about what I want to do. And I don't necessarily even have an obvious set of candidates. Rook c8 maybe, but it feels a little bit wonky. Queen e7 to step out of the pin. But that obviously lines up my queen with the e-file story. Yes. So there is a downside to that. But for the time being, I don't really have... and b4 again. I know it's a stupid mania of mine. But with the rook, the rook being gone from the a-file, and thus a3 ruled out, I don't think that b4 is an outlandish idea at all.
Okay. So this is actually a beautiful point, Andras, that you mentioned, because this was one of the questions that people ask, to talk about that transition between when the opening is done and you're forming a middle game plan, like those moments actually, that you have to justify to yourself. You can't rely on this typical opening memorization or patterns. Now you have to justify the moves to yourself and form like a long-term idea, like plan-based idea. Yeah. So also in terms of time expenditure, right? We would spend more time in a moment like this in actual game.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Like
by default, you have to, because the instincts no longer dominate your thought process, so it takes time.
Right.
And this is where experience, by the way, is an infinitely and definitely unfair advantage. Because for a player who has played this structure like 300 times, they still can rely on general overarching concepts.
Right.
For someone who is thrown into it,
we were kind of lost. Yep.
I would play rook c8, by the way, if you want to force me to say something.
If you have to say a move, then rook c8 is your candidate, because that's flexible, it improves the rook, and
it's a flexibility that mostly appeals to me, that I can still do either pawn pushes depending on what white chooses to do. Also note, interesting point here, I believe to point out, is that the same way how you must be aware of I ran out of obvious moves, the same is applicable to white. Right. So until now, we could more or less predict very safely what white was going to respond. Yeah, the standard knight maneuver, b3 to stop knight c4. Bishop a5 was a bit unusual, but hardly unexpected or shocking. But now, apart from queen d2, which you can still argue that it's definitely coming, but other than that, there is not a lot else that is cooking. So I would almost be willing to revisit my candidate list based on that. So that which one is fitting the bill best for queen d2. And I'm still going with rook c8, ironically.
Right.
Because then after queen d2, if I play b4, then we lined up with bishop c3 now perfectly, right? If that was my agenda.
Main idea,
So I would still insist on rook c8, but I'm more than happy to be completely off.
What are your long-term vision about the bishop on b7 in this position, Andras? How does this guy activate?
Look, this is an interesting point that a lot of players get stuck on. That, my bishop on b7 is bad. Yep, and so is the bishop on c2.
Yeah.
So, I obviously don't have a solution to the problem because we're biting into these two. I can foresee a future where I will relocate to c8 to d7 maybe. But right now it's completely out of the question that I can do such things. And so I just go like, suck it up, princess. It's bad, so is c2. It's fine. Look at my bishop on g7, total boss, right? Like, what about the knight on g3? That's not a piece to write home about. So I look at the big picture, because if there was one piece that stood out as utter garbage and the rest of them were Picasso paintings, it's a concern, right? But it's not the case. If you compare like for like, I would argue that black's two bishops are better than white's, because the b7 cancels out the c2 and I value my g7 higher than a5.
That's right.
Like, I know it's not satisfying answer to hear.
But I will tell you two more patterns, because I play these structures myself.
Yeah,
of course.
f5.
Right? Like that's one down the line, not right now, but down the line f5, right? To break the chain and activate the bishop by hitting on d5. Maybe you also know your classics. Sometimes, not right now, of course, but a piece sacrifice for 2 pawns, let's say, that can also come to mind at some point. Like take on d5 and something happens in the center of the board. It will never happen probably, but just a couple of patterns and chunks to make use of the bishop on b7 as well. Yes. Okay, so I will just try rook c8 and see what happens. Your move is okay. We get the feedback. Yeah, actually queen f6 was in the back of my head. I never told to you, because I want to unpin my knight, And as you said, you looked at queen e7. You don't want to see the alignment. You don't want to see the alignment over here. So I thought maybe queen f6 is a candidate, given your logic, right? Because the queen is not aligned with any other rooks in the position. You unpin your knight as well. I guess that was the thought of Spassky.
Now, hold on a tick. I need to understand here things, though, because as it's fine that queen f6 unpins the knight, but we totally can't, nor do we want to move the knight on b6.
That's a good point.
So I would question, and I'm not having a go at you.
Go back to this point, yeah.
What's the point of queen f6? Like, what I would like to understand now, and I think I know the answer, or I hope I do. Like, if I don't have the answer of what would I do after queen f6 if white just passed, then the move makes no sense, right?
Right, because even the d7 knight, you might argue, cannot move
exactly.
because of b6.
So you should never ever make a move in chess when with the mentality of not knowing what you would do as a follow-up to that if white passed, which is not legal in chess, but it's right. The concept of playing something with the purpose of a null move is something that somehow is, like, very often you find that amateur players only calculate in terms of I play queen f6 so that if they take on b6. But it's like, who is there to tell you why would they take? Like, what is your plan? Well, my plan is that if they take, that's not your plan. Right? That's not your plan what happens if they only do blah. You need to be ready if they don't do that, but they do something else. Right? So, because in a lot of amateur thinking is like that I played queen f6 so that if they take, I can take back with the knight. I know it didn't make sense. But they have nothing else prepared in case, you know, for the other 99.99% possibilities. But I think that queen f6 is planning queen b2.
Queen b2, yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. But queen b2, okay, let's discuss queen b2. Okay, you're attacking a2, right? What else is there?
I think that now finally my b4 plan might come to fruition because queen a3 is going to force you to trade on to b6. And then my pawns might start rolling with a5, a4, c4. It's weird because the queen is almost trapped on a3, so I wouldn't necessarily want to say that it's definitely on point. Queen b2 is definitely a plan. But I assume that after queen b2, bishop b1 is a kindergarten move to cover everything up. So there had to be something more to it. And I assume it has to be queen a3. Whether it's with or without pawn b4 is a different story. But it has to do something with queen a3.
Queen a3, let's say they go queen d2, this was their plan anyway, and they're guarding the bishop on a5. So even after that, I can challenge you. So
then I can play b4 and then it's a double attack. Because I'm
because of the b4.
c3 and the Tingo is hanging too.
So you're forcing the bishop to, let's say, take our terrible knight on b6 at that
Correct.
point.
And then actually I have an emergency exit via b2 to come back out if I needed to. But my pending c4 push, well, it may or may not pend, but with rook c8 it will be coming very fast. It's dirty. Which is why Fischer dropped back to b1 with the rook instantly after queen f6.
Yes, because he's stopping queen b2. Exactly. Exactly.
Now, this is not something I would be happily teaching to beginners, by the way. That let's play
go
queen f6, penetrate on an empty square on b2, not even taking a pawn. And you are golden, baby. You are golden. Yeah. Hello.
And this is a great point because when, you know, let's say amateurs observe these games, sometimes they see crazy decisions like this, you know, and they can get wrong lessons in some sense from justifying those moves to themselves. And
they tend to make rules out of the exception, which is never a good thing.
Yeah.
Sean, what kind of game did you pick, mate? Like, come on.
I just chose a random game to
put this in the bin, bring on the next one.
This is going to the bin. Don't model Spassky, guys, please. But I'm sure we'll see more interesting things later on in the game. Okay, first he gives up the center, then he tries to go to queen b2. Then he buries his knight on b6. Okay, the terrible.
Man, this guy forgot to buy a lesson from me.
Yeah, he should go to chessable. It's too late right now and get the center. Okay, joke aside, man, let's try to justify all this, okay?
Well, we have. Now we are golden.
Rook b1. Okay, Fischer simply ask a question mark to queen b2 idea and see what's the point. The knight on b6 is terrible right now, as you say. And even the knight on d7 cannot move because of that.
Okay, I have two candidate moves, but now I want you to speak because I'm talking too much.
Yeah, let's see. Let's dig about this position a little bit in depth, yeah? Because what is the opponent's threat, as you mentioned? I don't see a direct threat by white. Which might mean that we can simply improve our rook, for example, to c8. That's a candidate. What can be the second point of queen f6? I mean, if you have to move the knight on b6, yes, you can try to go to c8, but even c8 is terrible. So I don't see any improvement on c8, let's say, for the next future. But the bishop on a5 is annoying for sure because it sort of ties down two pieces. Coming back to your b4 idea, right? I mean, b4 I can play, but I can never challenge your bishop on a5, right? Your bishop is cut off, but how can I even challenge your bishop at that moment?
Yeah.
That's also not easy. You see, maybe the position is so terrible that I can even consider taking on d5, piece sacrifice for 2 pawns, you know? this brave idea. Bishop takes d5, he takes d5, but you can always take back with knight. I was thinking maybe I can take on e1, force the queen, and then take on d5, never works.
Even with the bishop I can take back.
Yeah, even with the bishop you can take, so that idea doesn't work. But just to show you, what I'm thinking about, because if the position is so desperate, then maybe I can justify that. By the way, that's also great for you guys to see how CM and IM differs in terms of approach and candidate mood generations and patterns known and so on and so on. That's also why I'm doing this with different level players. What else? I mean, h5, h4 is definitely one of those ideas later on to, let's say, kick that knight. But the knight on g3 is already terrible in some sense. You don't need to do it, you know.
That was one of my candidates.
Okay, h5, h4 is definitely an idea.
Yeah.
So basically the idea is just to leave the knight on b6 and leave the knight on d7 because they're sort of untouchable. And claim that the bishop on a5 is also sort of staying there for the attack of knight. And you can just claim on your ideas on the king side. But what's the bigger plan? Let's say you go h5, h4. Let's say knight e2. You know, how is that structure better for us, let's say, compared to this position? Like, what's the justification? Do you think there's less control in the center of the board because that knight has moved from g2?
Yeah, it feels wonky. Like, the rook on e1 is stupid. The knight on e2 is really bad. I don't know where it goes from e2. It feels, yeah, not happy. I was thinking h5, bishop d2, because h5 weakens g5 drastically. Yeah. And after bishop d2, the g5 square, especially with the queen, I mean, actually, bishop g5 is almost a queen trap after. And so the line I calculated was h5, bishop d2, knight e5 to eliminate the knight with a check. So bishop g5 can't be played. And if knight takes, then I can take back with the queen. And now the other knight all of a sudden becomes a useful dude to come back via d7, e5. So I'm still unsure of what to think of h5. Did you have any alternatives? Sorry, I mean,
maybe rook e7, rook e8. Maybe double up your rooks on the same open file, you know? Just prepare for some sort of opening on the e-file. You know, that's maybe one idea. I mean, in terms of ideas generated here.
Yeah, I feel like rook e7 is interesting. I was still looking at rook c8, but it almost feels like a pretty move that doesn't really contribute. Rook e7 does more so. The only downside to rook e7, but it's theoretical, not practical, is that you cut off your queen's retreat path. So you then need to be careful. But I don't really see how that could be exploited.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't see it. So rook e7 or h5 would be my go.
All right, let's put them on the board one by one. Let's see whether white's an edge in after rook e7. Apparently not the best move.
Oh man, I looked at e5, but I didn't think it. Oh man, I wanted to say that e5 hurts us after rook e7 because knight e4 traps the queen. But and then I thought that but I can just take with the knight and with the rook, completely forgetting that b6 was hanging.
This is crazy. Of course, talk about that b6 knight problem, and our pieces are tied down.
I did look at e5. I was about to call it, and I'm like, oh no, it's garbage because I can just take with pieces.
That's exactly why maybe h5, h4 is good because you are taking away those ideas from white.
Yeah.
You know?
And also we keep the queen open. So it was interesting because we even said the downside of rook e7, and then we didn't put the 2 and 2 together. We should return our titles.
Let's return our titles. The best engine move is almost 1 pawn's better according to the feedback we received. h5 is okay, by the way. h5 was an okay move, Andras. That was okay.
I'm not
but
surprised.
b4 was chosen. Okay. Coming back to your point again, you saw b4 from way before. So he's sort of cutting off the bishops.
Can you take knight e2 back, please? Because if knight e2 is their response, that tells me that my h5 idea is stupid.
Yeah, because you sort of kick them to a square they want to go
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly. So I think that is something that we need to reflect on. And this is also, by the way, since your overarching question was how to learn from master games.
Yes.
So if you come up with an idea like h5 and then Fischer plays knight e2, by default it has to mean that either you or Fischer is wrong. Now, I'm not suggesting, anything with that. I'm not trying to be funny. All I'm saying is that it merits, in fact, demands investigation.
Demands an investigation. Yes. Yes.
Because you want to know which is wrong, right?
Yes. Yes. I mean, in some sense, the G3 knight wasn't great, as we already know, right? So in that sense, he's sort of improving the piece. But yeah, I mean, maybe keeping the E4, E5 cards would be a better choice for white, yeah? In hindsight.
What I'm struggling with very badly is understanding where on earth is that knight gonna go from E2? Like, I would have gone, if anywhere, back to F1 so that I can return via E3 to control the C4 square and jump to G4 occasionally with the tempo to hit the queen and H6. It feels to me that the knight on E2 is completely on the wrong circuit. Like, C3 not accessible, D4 not accessible, F4 not accessible. Where are you going, Bobsky?
That's right. So you would say maybe knight F1 would be a better choice, right?
Well, if I had to, if someone told me, bro, you must move now the knight,
yeah,
I definitely wouldn't have gone to E2. Look, here's Bobby Fischer. I am a bozo, right?
yeah.
But in the end of the day, and this is important too,
Yeah.
you have to cook with what you have. I have some very limited knowledge in my head about chess. So that's what I'm working with. And what that limited knowledge tells me is that 92 makes no sense. And I'm more than happy to be wrong. In fact, I would like to be, because then I will learn something new. But with my current understanding, I can't just go like, oh yeah, awesome, to get it. Like, you have to be to a degree critical, no matter who plays it, no matter what it says, because you have your level of understanding. And if there is a conflict, it has to be resolved. And it's not a resolution that, oh yeah, he's good, I suck, let's walk away, because then there is no learning.
That's right. That's
So
right.
frankly,
You're
I would like to
questioning even the master's move.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I would love to hear now, not even the engine, but just in general, someone much better than me. But if that's not available, obviously I will consult the engine. But I would love to understand why you too.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you are doing it like you are analyzing a master game, you have access to the information, because obviously there will be a follow-up white move. We won't know it now for a while because we're trying to get blacks, but you can then check later on why that knight went to E2. But I am at a loss.
Yeah. So these are perfect moments when you're doing this training to take a note of this. After the game at least, yeah, go and check with the engine. Or maybe read Fischer's annotation. That's even better, by the way, guys. If you do it with the annotated game, even better, because you can later go to the real annotations and see the explanations of the masters
They
themselves.
shouldn't be ever working on unannotated games. That's a total waste of time.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that goes without saying that it has to be annotated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do we do with black, senor?
Yes, let's try to justify our entire idea so far. The knight on slow on b6.
If I had now 4 moves, I would play rook e7, rook e8, and second exchange on e4.
Okay.
And see, rook e7 I think is now a very logical follow-up, because
there's no more e5.
e5 no longer works.
There's no more e5, yes.
Because there's no knight e4. So I think there's a very strong chance that rook e7 is logical, especially because I can't find any other idea, so I'm stealing yours.
Yes, like even c4 is now losing all of its strength, right? In this
because b4 is hanging,
Yes, so we have to give up on the idea. Yeah, rook e7 definitely, followed by rook e8 is a move, is a candidate.
I mean, I almost can't think of anything else.
By the way, I like when you said that can be important for people. I like when you said, if I have 3 moves in a row right now, I think that's a good thing to sometimes ask yourself, what would be your ideal setup if you're like 3 moves in a row?
Yeah. The reason why I didn't want to highlight it, because unfortunately, in my experience, people tend to overdo it. And they apply that type of thinking in sharp tactical positions where it has absolutely no place, right? Where you have to calculate move by move response, punches exchanged. Here, when it's more positional and maneuvery, that's where this kind of thinking can lead to good decisions. But even then, you have to practice extreme caution.
Yeah, but you see, it can get suddenly so tactical. Like 2 moves ago, we thought we have the time and luxury to play
Yeah.
rook e7, rook e8. Suddenly we are hit by e5 and knight e4, the queen is trapped. You know? Because that's also a question sometimes people ask me. How do I understand the position is slow and maneuvering is justified versus I have to play fast and dynamically, you know? Like, how do I understand whether I have time for slow maneuvering in chess? Well, vice versa, you know? It's also takes a real tactical skill and eye even to notice these things.
Yeah. Like you need to, well, generally speaking, what is my opponent's next threat / next
Yeah.
move usually reveals to you if the nature of the position is
Yeah.
very aggressive and dynamic or not. Because frankly, after 92, after 5 minutes of me talking and staring at it, I still don't know what my opponent's next move is gonna be, which is a strong hint that there are no
Yes.
apparent threats. Of course, there's always a chance that I'm an
Right.
idiot and I'm blundering, but once again, I have what I have, I'm cooking with that.
Yeah.
I don't see a threat, so
Yeah.
I'm not worried.
By the way, one final advantage of getting this a8 rook to e7, Andras, is later on you can even play knight c8, maybe bishop c8, so you don't block this guy on a8, right? Like, so maybe that's also the final advantage of getting this just rook out of the way, you know, from the queen side. So maybe
Yeah,
these two
yeah.
pieces can find
be.
some room later on. Okay, I will put on the board. Rook e7. This is not so good because of a3, says the engine. Okay, this is strange.
Oh my god, we got on twice back to back tactically. This is so embarrassing. You can't
Okay,
take
because
a3 because bishop c3 traps the queen
bishop
again.
c3. Okay, that was the point of Fischer, by the way. Now we understand, right? Knight e2's function is it allows bishop c3. That's crazy. That's actually crazy. That we actually found it. We actually found why genius Fischer played knight e2 here, which looks ridiculous at first sight.
I hate this guy.
Oh my god, the guy is a genius, man. You see what he's seeing here? Wow.
Well, at least I'm very proud that I walk headfirst into all of his threats. So
That-
I'm the ultimate noob who is, you know, like you set up a plan or a trap and they walk into it the next time again and it just keeps on happening. It's like, oh.
Man, in 2 different occasions we trapped our own queen in this guess the move so far, which is not great. Oh yeah.
Okay, to be fair, we didn't, right? Because 95 is playable.
Of course, 95 is playable.
But
yes.
it's gonna get pretty ugly after that.
Which sort of means that, yeah, maybe right now it's not a real threat, a3. But if you close our queen's mobility, then it will become a threat
Yeah.
on the board. You have to be careful.
Man.
The best engine move is 1 pawn better than rook e7 apparently.
Well, yeah, I guess it clearly was quite bad. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, knight c8 doesn't make any sense if you have to, let's say, move that.
you know what
knight.
would be absolutely hilarious? If Spassky played here h5.
Ooh, what could be the point?
Well, I'm past that.
Yeah.
to hit the shadow of the knight of g3.
Right. Hitting the shadow knight, I love it.
Look, maybe rook c8. I don't know. I'm running out of useful moves.
Me
honestly.
too. So yeah, let's try rook c8. Your move is okay apparently.
Oh, he dropped back to e7.
Seriously?
Well,
Just to avoid all these shenanigans, but also taking away this rook e7, rook e8 idea altogether.
can you take a3 back? Because
Yes.
I want to figure out what he wanted to do after queen e7.
Yeah, what's black's intention?
Sheesh, man, this game is a mess.
This game is a
Or
mess.
maybe I am a mess.
Yeah.
Queen e7.
Queen e7, okay.
I mean, here I have a question for you because you're the boss. If now white plays knight g3, are we walking away with the draw?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Right?
Well,
Like,
Yeah, but why do we need to go back to f6 in some sense with the queen at that moment? Can't we just claim that we have other options at that point?
well, do we?
Maybe not. Yeah.
Like, what exactly?
What exactly?
We
That's a good
barely
question.
found queen f6. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting by this that black's position is bad. I'm just saying that it's a very sterile position where neither side can really do anything productive.
Uh-huh.
Right? So I don't mean to suggest that it's bad. I mean to suggest that the avenue of correct moves is incredibly narrow path. Like, not a lot is there. And Fischer clearly wanted to play for a win with a3, by the way.
Yes.
Like, that's a big cojones move. I would have loved to... To some degree, unless knight g3 is a mistake, I think it would have been psychologically justified by Fischer to play knight g3. And if queen f6, then go back again. And if queen e7, then you change a different move. Because then you deluded already your opponent that you wanted to draw. And then comes the rude awakening that, not today, buddy.
Okay.
Classic torture of the Soviet chess school.
Right.
Ironically, could have been deployed by an American again.
Against a Soviet person. That's funny. By the way, one immediate function of queen e7, at some point f5s are allowed. Of course, never a good option probably here, but okay, I see one function of moving paying way for the f pawn.
Yeah, with the knight and e2 waiting to jump to f4, man, I don't know.
That's terrible. That's terrible. But just to see, I just try to make sense of it. Of course, he's avoiding all kind of queen trap options. That's also one of the ideas. I don't see anything else, honestly. And he plays a3, right?
Yeah. Obviously that got captured, right? And I'm saying obviously because everything I say is wrong, so let's continue the trend.
Okay, so he's playing for a win.
So take bishop c3,
Yes, bishop c3, that was the point.
And now we need to take a breather. Because here there is a very funny situation, which is that technically, and I hate to bring this up, but I had a YouTube video recently about this. If you look at good bishops and bad bishops, technically here white is offering to trade their good bishop for a bad bishop. And I'm saying it despite the fact that previously I claimed it to be a boss. But if we talk purely pawn structure, this bishop is bad, this is good, right? Because this is going to find ultimately targets against these fixed white pawns, whereas this one is walled behind its own bodies. But
that's right.
Out of those pawns, it's only d5 that is fixed. So the pawn structure is too fluid for the time being to talk about good and bad bishops. It's very easily possible and feasible that white will play f4, e5, blasting it open. So I merely perhaps just want to point out that it's unclear who the bishop trade is going to favor, or it's not determinable by just going on about good and bad bishops.
And can we really call this like an exchange for king safety, because you see the bishop on g7 is a protector of the king, but there's never really attacking chances against the king side, right? Like, so this trade cannot be justified for that.
No, I wouldn't worry about that. My two candidate moves for black thus would be to take on c3 or knight e5.
Knight e5 is interesting. So you want to just, let's say, exchange on e5 yourself to keep a piece on e5 and...
Well, good old Dvoretsky taught us the superfluous knights, when the knights are on the same circuit. So the two knights on d7 and b6 are dumped. Like, you want to break that setup as soon as possible, because they are doing the exact same job. And by the way, with the pawn structure change, I'm already thinking that an endgame would be pretty sexy for us.
Let's see. What makes you think that this endgame is sexy for us? Like, the pawn is weak a little bit, and
I consider it's funny because obviously for the endgame to be sexy for us, I would need an exact piece formation. But generally speaking, Benoni structures bode very well for black.
Yes.
The further we progress toward endgame, and the reason that is because the pawn structure generally is favorable for black. That being said, now with the pawn having captured on a3, we split off one pawn from this beautiful mass, so it's not really applicable, but still. And also the space disadvantage is irrelevant because we have fewer pieces on the board.
Right.
And generally speaking, white's pawn majority with d5, e4 and the f pawn, in the endgame to squash that through with f4, e5 is almost never a plan. Whereas our plan on the queen side to utilize the 3 versus 2 usually is doable. Now, here more likely we are going to be able to play against b3, but it's a bit far-fetched.
But you're right, in terms of Benoni advantages, yes, 3 versus 2 on the queen side, healthy majority on the queen side, usually is favorable in the endgame. Also because, the white king is on the king side, it cannot really come back and defend against those pass pawns, and definitely, that's one asset for Benoni.
So I think it's either knight e5 or bishop c3. I would calculate knight e5 because it's calculable, and I would look at knight e5, bishop e5, queen e5, and maybe f4.
Yes,
because that's a fat tempo, and I don't have an obvious square for the queen.
Right.
And I don't have sufficient cover on e5 for my liking. I may have queen f6 back though, and now again the knight on e2, man, is shocking. It's really bad. So I'm still happy with black after queen f6 with the subsequent maybe knight d7.
The whole point of knight e5, the main point, is to improve this knight on b6. Yeah?
Exactly.
So we have to justify this to ourselves, of course. Yeah.
What would I do after bishop f6, bishop c3, knight c3 though? Actually, that's an interesting argument. I could play knight e5 there too. And then after knight e5, queen e5, now the knight on c3 is hanging.
Right, and there's no more f4 business to worry about.
Exactly. So that's a bit of a toss-up there. I can't really tell which one I would prefer. So you will call the shots.
Very, very good point, actually, to compare. You know, sometimes we can actually rely on these comparisons when we calculate, right? Like, we will get a similar structure, maybe similar position, but there are some nuances, there are some differences. Yeah. Do you want that knight to be placed on c3 at that moment or on e2, for example? That's a very good point. The knight on e2 supports f4 push. Also stops queen d4 checks and so on. So that's the claim. Yeah, I would probably... I mean, I don't see any benefit the knight being on c3 per se. I don't see that knight as a great piece. As you mentioned, it can be a tactical liability as well. Can be attacked.
I tell you what concerns me about that. So if we do knight, bishop c3, knight c3, knight e5, knight e5, queen e5, the white plays queen d2, which very handily defends the knight and prepares f4. Whereas in the previous line after f4, the knight had to babysit the f4 pawn. Then again, you can play queen d2 there too, preparing knight c3. So likely we will transpose.
Very good point. Let me first try to guess your move, knight e5. Okay, that was apparently a big mistake. Not good. Okay, we can try again.
Okay, wait. I want to figure out what is so bad about it. Knight e5, queen e5, f4. Okay, maybe knight e5, bishop e5, f4 then. And then I sort of get to keep the cake and eat it too, because then if bishop c3, knight c3, then the knight is better on c3 and f4 has been played already.
Right.
And then I'm beginning to worry about my king's safety as well.
I see.
I am very tunnel visioned on this knight e5 idea though, because my knights suck. And I really dislike that.
Yeah.
So maybe the difference is that maybe bishop takes, knight takes, and then knight e5. And then if knight e5, queen e5, then even if queen d2, if they play f4, I have queen d4 check to trade queens. That is going to drastically compromise the d4 pawn though. So that needs prep. Remember that after queen d2 I have a tempo move because it's my turn, right?
Yes.
And h6 is not hanging because c3 is hanging. So I might have something like rook c8. And then f4 actually blunders because after queen d4 cd, I'm skewering the two minor pieces on the c file. Maybe I'm going a bit too deep here, but...
but understandable. You're comparing these two lines and you're searching for the best reaction for white and you try to counter that. And you're starting from a very good point that you want to improve these knights. I mean, that's strategic guidance. Also in terms of space, as you mentioned, like we're sort of lacking space and it's good to trade some pieces. So probably it's also what he played. Okay, not good apparently. So we are both missing in this position a very good move for black, and we are going for wrong directions for some reason, which is surprising because what else is there for black? Yeah,
maybe a5, a4.
Maybe allow the exchange on g7. Yeah, that's the claim. The king sort of improves. You defend h6, and like the claim that the king is better placed on g7 in some sense.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't satisfy me with black in the sense that I want an idea that improves my knights. So then maybe a5, a4.
a5, a4, interesting. Yeah, because that's how we awaken that knight on b6. That's
and that actually helps your bishop on b7, which has been a big issue.
As well, yeah. A whole different idea right now actually we discovered, yeah? a5, a4. Which was for some reason missed because, you see, there was always a pawn on a2, not anymore. Because when there was a pawn on a2, a5, a4, I can just wait. And the knight is still terrible. But in this very pawn structure, a5, a4 will actually destroy the pawn which is burying the knight on b6. So that's actually a very, very good point, Andras. I think that's what he played. Okay. What I said is also wrong. Okay, this move we really, really failed. Like we came up with all these ideas and apparently not objectively even good for black. Okay.
Dude, what game have you picked? Come on.
I picked the most unconventional.
Oh, wait.
Right. Is it
No
just
way.
no? C4 doesn't work. Yeah,
That's what I was thinking, but it seems
No.
positional suicide with
so
giving
bad,
Nah.
so bad positionally. No, 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 no. C4 cannot be correct.
Wait, is there any merit to playing A2?
Just induce A2 first.
But I don't see the point. Like, I actually wanted white to have to spend time to
Spend some
recuperate the
time.
pawn, right? Like, that
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I'm still at a complete loss.
It's so strange. This is very strange, actually, this moment. I mean, F5 cannot be. F5 is a suicide, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
looked at
knight
that
F4,
too,
knight
but
E6.
nah.
It's just, no, no, no. Not in
Nah.
this alignment on the E file. It's just the wrong time.
Nah, can't be. Knight F4 is also then optimally placed.
Yeah, how about knight F6? We avoid the trade with knight F6 and then maybe knight D7 to follow, but then you'll have E5s to white at some point, yeah? Then, I mean, knight F6.
D5 is hanging, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, knight F6 makes sense. It hangs E4.
Okay, so the threat is on the pawn on E4, which we sort of missed so far. And E5 doesn't work because we take on D5.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And if knight G3, then you can drop the other knight back to D7 and all of a
Yes,
sudden...
and claim that that knight improved. Okay, I'm gonna try this. Mistake, come on. Okay, so this is very strange, Andras. Okay, you go back to your move just to see whether rook C8 was chosen. No? It's so strange because we're missing a move that is clearly much better than all the other alternatives we looked at. It sort of shows the position is richer than we thought. Okay, A2, but it just looks ridiculous. Just to make, for the sake of making that move. Okay, not good, as we already discussed. Cannot be the piece sacrifice on D5, right?
No, I looked at it already.
We're not that desperate. Not yet, at least. I mean, let's say bishop takes. No, it doesn't work.
Okay, you know what? Let's actually have a look at F5 and let's see if we can refute it.
Okay, F5. F5, very sharp.
Because I can't play knight F4 because C3 hangs. And if I take on G7, then Queen G7 basically nullifies knight F4. Because G6 is covered, and knight E6 I think I can maybe sack. Maybe. Maybe
you
not.
can sack the exchange, okay?
But yeah, it feels very fairy. I don't trust that.
F5, they can take on A5 as well to open up the E file against the queen, let's say.
I then thought maybe knight D5 was good because then bishop on C3 hangs, so... That is absolute chaos, but at least I thought that we had some central pawns.
Okay, just for the sheer sake of not knowing the options, wow, he played F5 and it was clearly the best. This takes real guts, yeah, to play a move like that.
Okay, take it back, please. Take it back. I want to see this. So F5.
Okay, F5 on the board without looking at moves for white.
Yeah, no, I wanted to look at it without playing it because I wanted to calculate.
Let's visualize.
Yeah, exactly.
F5 on the board. F5 on the board. Yeah.
So F5, Bishop G7, Queen G7, Knight F4. Oh, I'm a potato. They have not. I think we have Knight F8.
Knight F8 defends against Knight E6.
Yeah. And if you take F5, I still. Oh wait, now you can take F5 because D5 has been guarded. Okay, no, never mind. That was rubbish. Whoo, boy.
I mean, for the sheer, like, F5 was always, I told you, F5 is an idea in the position. But, the moment he chose to play this move.
So F5, Bishop G, Queen G, Knight F4. Maybe A2 is a thing there too, by the way, with the long diagonal. So that when we trade on the E file, A1 may be vulnerable. So let's say we throw in A2, Rook A1. That's forced. And then, let's say we play FE. Well, Knight E6 is not playable, is it? Wait, no, it is, because after Rook takes D, EF, they have ED. Holy smokes, man.
So F5, which line are you looking at?
F5,
takes?
Bishop takes, Queen takes, Knight F4, A2, Rook A1, FE4, Knight E6, Rook takes E6, D takes E6, E takes F3, E takes D7.
Right.
And we are dead. At least according to my very poor estimation.
Yeah. You see, guys, it's just First of all, probably there are other moves down the line, and that's very difficult actually. Yeah?
I must have blundered like 4 times over in that
Yeah,
line.
yeah, you know, like it's such a difficult process, this one, because that's a very deep line, and you give so many choices to white as well down the line. Like, how do you make sure, you know? Like, that's the key line to be assessed and so on. It takes real guts, and I'm sure he took a lot of time here before playing a5. By the way, we were just casually guessing the moves
Okay,
here.
John, I think I have it. I
Okay.
think the idea is that allowing the knight to come into e6 is no biggie. So what you do is this: f5, bishop g7, queen g7, knight f4, fe4, and if knight e6, you just go queen f6.
Queen f6. Okay, so no more. I mean, the most they can do is knight c7 fork.
Yeah, they can do that, but that doesn't particularly worry me, especially because I can trade on e1 with check, so it's not even winning an exchange. And I was never, well, I can't, sorry, because there's a pawn on e4. Yeah, there's a pawn on e4, so...
Oh, the pawn is still on e4, yes.
But that means that, yeah, I was never worried about losing the exchange, to be honest.
Because the claim is you destroy their center, and you activate your minor pieces, the bishop and the knight on b6. And you also have a pawn on a3, just a menace, I mean, just time-consuming stuff. So you have enough compensation at that point. That's the claim.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a... Oh, no, I don't.
Because you see, I have to like put in the words, like I have to explain this to myself, like what's the justification of going for this, and maybe you're right.
The only justification is extremely precise calculation. You can't explain it in any other way. This is where life sucks. Like you either find this and you calculate it and you smashed it, or you don't.
And is that also how super grandmasters, world champions differ from us mortals? Like
so this is the textbook case. This means that 5 too soon. We didn't put the energy, the time, the effort.
Right.
Like this is the typical mistakes that I remind amateurs that they make and my students, that they calculate far less than I do, and I calculate far less than an ordinary GM, and an ordinary GM calculates far less than a super GM. That is pretty much one of the biggest differences, all the way down to the ladder. And along with the positional understanding, but I would say that the positional understanding of a 2600 GM is almost on par with 2780. It's the calculation. There's only so much positional concepts you can work with.
Yeah, it's about deep calculation, seeing all those possible branches, but also evaluating the result.
Yeah, evaluation is part of calculation. It's seeing the correct and being able to separate the wheat from the chaff and the correct from the wrong.
You see, like, I'm just trying to understand how quickly we dismissed move like f5 out of hand, you know? Like, because it just looked unsafe, it just looked like opening up the rook, knight e6 ideas. Like, we were very, like, dismissive about the move now. And he still goes for it at this particular moment. I wonder, we will come back to it, you know? The timing of this move, which was always in the air, in some sense. But at least I'm happy, you know, because I told you, one reason of queen e7 is it prepares f5. Remember, Andras, I told you, it prepares f5.
The legend has spoken.
Yeah. Now I'm happy. Okay, he took on g7.
Yeah, queen takes.
Queen g7, of course. Knight f4. Wow, we are guessing correctly right now. Beautiful.
It's quite shameful that we're guessing the white moves correctly.
Yeah, but that's a good sign. We were looking at the right direction at least, you know, like just to... Then maybe evaluation difference, because Spassky saw all this.
Yeah, so in the meantime I calculated some more lines, but I still don't know what to do, because after FE I thought for a second that maybe after knight e6 I can sack the exchange, and after DE just move the knight to f6, which would hang f3, and if f3 move then I can connect the pawns with d5 and I'm a glorious beauty. But after knight f6 this queen takes d6, and now b6 is hanging again.
Yeah.
But maybe then I have knight c8, but then there's queen d8 check. So it still doesn't work.
So once again, f takes e4, knight e6, takes. You're looking at maybe knight f6 even to escape the attack.
But then I discarded that on account of queen takes d6.
Because of queen d6, yeah.
And it's hanging the knight on b6, and if I move the knight to b6, hitting queen and knight on f3, then queen d8 check escapes. That was where I stopped. I briefly looked at knight f8 here, but I thought that after ef it's hopeless.
Yeah, knight f8, ef definitely is white's move because they defend d5 at that moment.
I still don't know if you want to squeeze in a2 here, by the way. That has an impact on almost every line we looked at.
Yeah. A2 is also a candidate. Good board vision. We can always start with f takes e4 as well, I believe, right? If you
Yeah,
don't want
but
to give-
after knight e6, we have to come up with the goods. I tried queen
Yeah.
f6, I couldn't make
Queen
it work.
f6.
Yeah, unfortunately, knight c7 is very annoying. Because now I can't take f3 because then e8 hangs with the tempo. Because f6
That's
queen
actually
is
nice.
on.
That's actually beautiful, yeah. Yeah, I see it.
So as much as I was super happy to allow knight c7, I allowed it at the only time when it actually is very, very obnoxious.
So start from the basics. What is the opponent's next move? Knight e6 and followed by knight c7 is the main threat, right?
Well,
Potentially.
f5 is hanging too, so
Even e takes f5 is a threat in some sense, yes. So we are facing two different threats, let's say, which limits our choices.
yeah, I would be very surprised if this was not fe4, but I am yet to make it work.
fe4 is desirable, yeah, because you're breaking this d5 pawn, you activate the knight and the bishop, you get ready for some exchange sacrifice potentially, but at least there's some point to f takes e4. Like you don't also allow e takes f5 business.
Maybe after knight e6, I was maybe looking at queen c3 to penetrate a bit deeper and just allow knight c7, because then at least when they take on e8, it's not going to hit my queen. But after queen c3, there is rook e3, kicking me out. Wait, can we go to f7?
Yeah, I was also looking at queen f7 if you don't want knight e8 to come with tempo, right? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah.
So
And it also puts an extra attacker on d5, so after knight c7 I can take
Yes.
d5.
Yes.
I think that's it. Fe knight e6 queen f7. And if bishop takes e4, then we have knight f6 hitting the bishop and the d5 pawn as well. Yeah, that's my guess. I was completely tunnel visioning on queen f6, and to some degree I still can't believe that that's not the right move, but this game humbled me beyond measure, so...
Yeah. Okay, let's put on the board, because I think this was your main point. And f takes e4 was so desirable in some sense. That's a justification of playing f5 anyway, yeah? Because you want to break those pawns to the center.
But Bobby, what's happening, bruv? Like, Bobby went knight h4.
Bobby went knight h4, and all of our calculations just thrown out the window. Yeah.
What's wrong with this dude?
In hindsight, are we guilty not to look at a move like knight h4, or is it too ridiculous to be calculated? I mean, you know, it's just...
No, I guess we should have, but knight e6 is definitely something, and this is
We should have checked first.
a good detour for your viewers' questions. You cannot possibly proceed here without having a definitive closure on
Of
knight
knight
e6,
e6.
because
Yes.
that was the obvious move.
Yes.
And you wanna, like, you can't possibly finish this game analysis without open question marks in your head about moves that are screaming obvious.
And this actually connects to how this should be done properly, guess the move training, yeah? Because moments like this, you cannot just miss. After the training, you have to go back and check those critical moments, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like you
With
need
the
to
engine, maybe with
take
annotations.
notes or whatever to remind yourself to go back to this.
Yeah, that's the right way to do it.
Knight h4. So knight f4 is a move. No, sorry, knight f8 is a move, but knight f6 is also a move. Because now we
Knight
have to
F6.
decide which pawn do we want to keep and which one to give up. And I'm actually more inclined toward knight f6 because it's the aggressive move.
Knight f6, so you're just giving up the pawn on g6. They will take on g6.
Yeah, I mean,
just
if
play
you
that
do
position.
that, then your knights are going to be awkwardly linked together so that they won't be able to move. And against Ida, I should be able to take d5 anyway. Maybe I'm a bit careless here.
Why don't we just look at the most crazy looking move? Because the game is so crazy so far. Just look
G5?
at g5, yeah? Why don't we just look at g5? That's the most forcing.
Yeah, but both knight h5 and knight f5 come with tempo, so...
Right. It looks so unsafe, right? Like,
it looks a lot of things. But then again, after g5, knight f5, we have queen f6.
Queen f6, yes.
Whereas
Queen F6.
g5, knight h5, you have queen f7.
Queen f7, double attack, yes.
Not really, because the h5 knight is guarded, but it's a very safe spot for the queen.
Right, and where is the knight on h4 going, right, Andras?
Exactly.
There's no return. It has no return after g5.
Wait, well, there's one more thing. After g5, there's knight e6 as well.
There's knight e6 to calculate for sure.
When again, we could go queen f6, by the way.
Just queen f6, right? And knight on h4 is the main problem for Fischer, right? It has no return. This is actually kind of crazy. Like g5 sort of trapped the knight on h4.
Okay, so there is one more thing. After knight f... maybe not. After g5, knight f5, queen f6, we have queen g4. Which pins the g pawn. But then knight e5 and then queen g3.
Yeah.
But then f5 is hanging, so it's actually not good. Okay.
Wow, so g5 is a candidate for sure. Given those short lines that we just quickly saw, some tactical patterns like knight getting trapped, we are excited about g5. Looks very incorrect at first sight, but...
Okay. I was thinking maybe after g5, knight e6, queen f6, what if I just sack a piece with rook e4?
Yeah.
And then gh and then either rook g4 check. Yeah, actually rook g4 check. Aren't you actually completely got it there?
Could be. Could be.
Whoa. That looks like some sexy time.
It looks like one of those Kasparov games, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Was it against Karpov? Like he sacrificed all the pieces on the king side? And...
the dude sacrificed like 9 pieces.
Yeah.
And then checkmate him with the remaining 14. Like
exactly.
It felt like he was playing with 5 sets of pieces in that game.
Yeah. It always feels like there's more pieces than you.
Yeah. But I have also said that when Kasparov is playing and he's attacking, it feels like the pieces move differently from anybody else. It's like it's just completely different rules applied to Kasparov's attacking pieces.
Yes, we should do one Kasparov game later on. Well, I mean, if not g5, then g6 pawn is hanging, and as you mentioned, maybe that's also a thought. Superfluous knight, let's say. But they will still involve, you know, queen g4 and so on. They will still bring some pieces. e4 is under fire as well, so knight f6 is a thought for sure. I get that. You defend e4.
I will go nuts. By the way, did we discuss knight e5 at all?
Knight e5 is also a thought. You defend g6.
But that allows knight e6.
g6.
And also hangs e4.
Yes, 2 different choices.
Call me crazy, I would go knight f6. I'm very happy to get all
wrong.
All guesses wrong.
Wait, knight f6 is not good apparently. It even says black is decisive advantage right now, like -2. Wow. Could be g5 then. I mean, if something decisive, maybe that's the g5 because of the knight problem. But what else?
Knight e5, I suppose, is a move as well.
Knight e5 is also a move for sure. That was a big mistake apparently.
Yeah. Okay. So
g5 must be the move, man. Oh boy, he plays g5. Okay. Fischer goes knight e6.
Okay, so
Fischer goes knight e6.
I'm very curious now.
Must be queen f6, yeah? Queen f6 is safe distance against both knights. But yeah, rook e4, as you mentioned. So rook e4, g takes h4, rook g4 check. King h8.
You know what I think it is? After rook g4 check, it's gonna be king f7. And if you play rook g6... Oh, I can't sack the queen because then queen g4 is still coming in with mate.
Yeah.
Okay.
But maybe king h8 is safe enough. You know,
but then what do you do after rook g6?
Rook g6? Wait. I took your knight on h4, yeah? What is rook g6?
Oh, wait. Hang on. What line are we looking at now? Queen f6.
So queen f6, rook takes e4. Rook e4, g takes h4.
Yeah, rook g4 check and then rook g6.
Oh, of course, because the bishop covers. Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
I think that's completely game over.
Okay, we don't need to take the knight, right? We can also take on d5 with the bishop against rook takes e4. Bishop takes d5.
Oh, that's a filthy move. You're not allowed to do that.
I'm not allowed to take any pawns, right? It's just too much. Because the bishop was already dead for the entire time. At least it also attacks the knight on e6, like a double attack.
No, that's instant win for black. I completely overlooked that. That's carnage, like game over.
Okay, so once again, queen f6, rook e4, bishop takes d5.
Yeah, it's completely unplayable, I think. Yeah.
Like, we're not playing checkers, we are playing chess. We don't need to take the knight on h4. And then the knight on e6 is also hanging. And
Yeah, see,
Okay.
Fischer is terrible, man. Like, what's going on, man?
Fischer is terrible in this game. Okay, that's 1992. He's not in his prime, right? He just took like
I'm
20 years
joking.
of,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
20 years of hiatus. Okay, Queen F6 was chosen and Queen G4 by Fischer.
Dude would have beaten me like in a 12-game match. I would have lost 13 love, right? So
Yeah,
just
yeah,
for the record.
Sure. For sure.
So he walks headfirst into 95, right?
He walks right into it. Yes.
Good luck persuading me not to play it.
Okay, Queen takes E4 and claim is that he's shooting at H7.
I don't know what his claim is, to be honest.
So Knight E5, Queen takes E4. What's your next move?
Rook E7.
You just defend H7 like that?
Actually, yes.
Also guard against Knight C7s.
And I might even threaten Queen takes E6 there.
Ah.
Can't do it with Rook because then check. But with Queen I can, and then we trade queens.
Right.
But maybe there is better than that. Bishop D5 obviously deserves.
For sure. Bishop takes D5.
Knight
Maybe
C7.
Knight takes D5. Bishop takes D5, Knight C7, yeah.
Knight C7, Knight D5. Knight E8.
Yeah, they can
Knight
attack our
G4, Knight F6, Knight F6. We're down an exchange, but we are up 70,000 pawns.
Yeah. Yeah, this definitely requires calculation too. Knight takes D5, Bishop
Dude,
takes D5.
I'm calculating like a boss. It's just all of them are wrong. Like that's.
Yeah. But this was a very complex game I chose. Not the best, not the most instructive in some sense, but still quite funny. How sharp
Definitely
these
managed
things
to
can
make me look like a clown.
But we both look like clowns here, and that's the point, you know. Some humbling for our adult improvers here. They're not the only ones that are struggling. Queen G4.
Yeah, I reckon I would take D5 and jettison the exchange. Because if I can take the queens down with that, that would be tremendous. So Bishop D5, Knight C7, Knight E5. If they, in this position they have to take E8, then I'm a happy camper.
Yeah.
They don't. They can go back to E2.
Yeah. Bishop takes D5 is the most desirable move. Yeah, because the bishop awakens, you defend E4.
Yeah,
so that should be calculated first.
On that note, by the way, we are casually bypassing Knight takes D5.
Yeah. We should give ourselves choices.
For
Knight takes
no
D5.
apparent reason.
Yeah, because it also stops Knight C7, yeah?
Yeah, but then the Queen E4 idea is now in
That's
the
right.
picture again, which is quite annoying. But Rook E7.
Rook E7.
Knight F5.
Knight F5, yes.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Yes, let's not allow Queen takes E4 and Knight F5, right? That's the best scenario for Fischer.
That is yucky business.
Okay, then Bishop takes D5 gains strength again, because you don't want to allow this.
Having said all this, in the Knight E5 line we can do this, because after Knight E5, Queen E4, Rook E7, if you play Knight F5, you clog up the diagonal, and I can take on E6 with the rook. So it
tell
depends.
me the line again.
It depends. So I still have a running vote for Knight E5. I feel like the jury is still out on that one. Knight E5, Queen E4, Rook E7. And then you don't have Knight F5 or Knight G6, because in either case I play Rook takes E6.
Right, Rook E6 is the main issue. That's also very forcing. Knight E5 hits the queen and sort of forces Queen takes E4. Rook E7.
I will refrain from recommending any moves from here on out, and we'll just go with what you say, sir.
Let's go. Knight E5 was incorrect. Let's probably look at Bishop takes D5. This was the point. Wow, big mistake. 3.3 pawns apparently. Wow, Knight C7 was so huge at that moment. Of course, Fischer calculated that. No, cannot be King H8. Is it?
So is it Rook E7 first?
Yeah, Rook E7. There's some.
But then Knight F5 is a problem, so that can't be it.
Black is clearly winning.
King H8.
Like, yeah, I was looking at the king move. I'm looking at moves like King F7, by the way. But there's Queen H5 check to begin with. King H8, yeah.
I mean, Queen E4 is mate threat immediately, right? So not
yeah,
exactly
Queen E4. Actually, that's a worse version for us.
But then you can play knight f8, so there's that.
If there's knight f8, then maybe knight f8 directly.
Yeah, that's
But
a
then
good call.
queen takes e4.
And then you have to cover f. Yeah, no. Queen e4, rook e6 is winning for black, so it's knight f8. Oh my god.
Oh, rook e6. Yes.
Yeah. That's been already there.
Oof. Okay, so knight f8 directly.
In fact, after knight f8, queen e4, I could even take h4. Like queen e4 is not a move. Like you're losing all your pieces, right? Knight c7 might be the idea there.
Knight c7 is always there. Yes. So knight f8, knight c7.
Whatever, bishop c8.
I was thinking as well, like maybe hit the queen and take the knight on h4.
Yeah, queen g3 is still on though, so yeah, no.
This is amazing. You know, guys, just when it feels like it's over, we still blunder left and right, just to show us, you know, how difficult this is. Okay, I mean, king h8 doesn't make much sense in hindsight. Queen takes e4.
Knight f8. I still haven't written that off.
Knight f8? Knight f8 is definitely a choice.
No, I meant king h8, queen e4, and then knight f8. Now you have hanging e6, hanging d5, and hanging h4.
Right. So it's like multiple threats.
I don't think that king h8 is an entirely outlandish idea. Try it.
Let's try. Mistake, huge mistake apparently. Knight f8. Let's try knight f8. Knight c7. This is the crunch moment of the game, Andras. Shows us why we are not world champions here, yeah? And even
okay, you know what?
Fischer.
You know what would be hilarious if he plays rook c8 to stop knight c7.
Yeah, or he induces a2 and then we are back to square one, you know.
Yeah,
because never forget, there's always this a2 insertion at some point.
Chan, you can't publish this, man. Let's meet up again next week.
Let's meet up again. Look, okay, let's meet up again this week. Okay.
I mean, dude, like we just got absolutely destroyed by two 85-year-olds.
Yes, they clearly tried us. By the way, we looked at knight takes d5. For some reason, we never tried it on the board. He played knight takes d5. I wonder why. Because we thought there's something. There was queen e4 maybe. But we saw something. Because in hindsight, that actually stops knight c7. So it's funny. We didn't actually put it on the board.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign to. This is when I call off the lesson. Like, okay, we are tired. Let's
tired. Let's
I'm
finish
hungry
off.
too. It's late in the evening.
Oh my God, it's already getting too late in Australia, of course.
Also, it's a good time to, give up chess for me and start tennis seriously.
Start tennis seriously, yes. That game is so humbling for us to have this. Okay,
Apparently
so
both of
very
them
quickly. Our viewers, hopefully you're enjoying it.
And they must be laughing themselves silly.
Yeah, right now they are laughing.
Queen g5, queen d7, rook e7, yeah?
That's a thought to defend against the mate. Yes. Yes.
What else?
I mean, there's also knight
we could
e5.
take the h. We could take h.
We could take with h, but there's also an argument for knight e5.
95, yes, beautiful.
Right? Argument for knight e5, centralization.
Queen e4.
Center. Well, queen takes g5 probably, yeah? But okay. Apparently it's just a mistake, not a terrible blunder.
I'm improving.
Then it must be hg, yeah? Because we want to keep attacking that knight. I mean, that's the main problem for Fischer, right? That knight on h4. So now we are facing queen h1, h7 ideas. Is it really terrible?
If rook e7, then
rook
queen
e7.
g4 back.
Rook e7, queen g4 back, but
then bishop c8, queen g3, queen f4 made force the queens off with the winning endgame.
That's right. Let's put on the board. Rook e7.
What?
Apparently, that's also winning. Yeah? Wow, it was apparently the best engine move. Can you see the feedback? Rook e7 was the best engine move. Yay, baby! Yes, baby! Finally!
Alright, so all you need to do, Chan, is to edit this video, which is now an hour and 40, down to 40 seconds. YouTube short.
That's what I'm doing, sir. Only this moment I will put on YouTube short, because that was when our stars have shined.
Glory.
By the way, like, look at the position. Like, we are focusing on the king side now. Now things are happening on the queen side again. Okay, minus 4.83. Even we
guess
cannot
it's
mess this
knight
up.
takes c2.
Knight takes c2 is a thought, for sure. Because that knight is still sort of trapped on h4. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Rook takes e4. Okay.
I mean,
So Fischer's claim is that if you take on e4, he will first take on a8. And then he will pick up the rook on e4.
oh, by the way, knight c2 was a mistake. Apparently, rook b8 was better. Just saying.
Wow. Okay.
Well, now everything seems to win, right? a2.
a2 is definitely on the cards. Are we blundering something? Probably not. We cannot take the knight, right? Because rook g4, okay, it's not mate probably, but it looks risky to start with.
I think we
Rook
can
g4,
actually.
checking h8. We cover g7 though, and the queen is quite powerful. It seems like everything is winning though. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see.
Extra-
I would go a2 just to be a pest, but maybe I'm
Yeah.
stupid. No.
Definitely. a2 is on the board.
Now, whatever. Get a queen, I guess, or
Get a queen. Okay. He didn't play that. I think there are multiple solutions here.
Wait,
Maybe
did he
that's
play
not the
knight
most critical.
b4?
He played knight b4 back for some reason. Yeah. Are we looking at the right game? Are the notations correct? Okay, has to be checked.
Knight b4.
Knight b4, yeah. That was strange.
What is Brav doing?
He's stopping queen d5 check. Right? That's the only point. He's scared about queen d5 ideas for some reason.
I'm yet to find the reason, but I think you are correct. But like after king h8, you don't even have like a threat of a threat, let alone.
Yeah, he knows he's playing against Fischer, so he just tries to, But why don't we just promote right now and pick up the rook with check? That's exactly how the game went. Okay. Queen e5 check is risky because of f4, right? We allow f4. We don't want that.
Queen g7, right? And you are right.
Queen G-
Now it comes handy that queen d5 is cancelled.
Yes, queen d5 is cancelled, so let's return back to queen.
Oh! Got it right.
Beautiful. I will put this in the short as well. All of our good guesses.
A little bit of editing will be required, I would say.
Yeah, I will talk to my editor after this session, Andras. Don't
Please,
worry. We'll
please.
need some one full day of work and we are there.
200% pay rise for this video.
Exactly. I need to give some pay rise to him, but he'll be happy. Queen f3. Still no queen d5 checks. We have an extra rook, if I'm counting correctly. That's handy.
I was thinking about rook a7, but I don't know if that is the best way to go from here.
Rook a7 is definitely a thought to defend the 7th rank.
Because initially I wanted
h8.
rook f8, but after queen g3, I can defend g5 with a handy move. Whereas if I go rook a7 with the idea of rook f7, then if queen g3, I have rook e5. Although
That's
then,
a very good thought, actually.
Although then
Wow,
comes
it was
knight
apparently a
f3.
mistake. Right. That was apparently a mistake. Maybe king h8 to avoid well, maybe you don't need that because knight f5 anyway, yeah? You'll play knight f5. Maybe rook f8 to attack the queen first.
But what do you do after queen g3?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
By the way, I wanted to tell you something, apart from the fact that your video seems to be kind of dying. And that is that when people ask me about what kind of master games to study,
Yeah.
I usually recommend them to study master games where it's a very high rated player against a not very high rated player. Because when two of
Very good
those
point.
clash, we end up in a cluster disaster like this one.
Disaster. Yes.
Where two title players can guess 10% of the moves correctly, and there is not a lot of love happening.
Yep. 100%.
Whereas
For
when
the
you
future-
see a game between two players where the gap is much more noticeable, it's a lot easier to identify good and separate good from bad. This is what you should do,
true.
this is what you shouldn't do, and so on.
This is so true. This is so beautiful. We can even do it later on. Like there are some even miniature games, some instructive games that we can even like do it as like a short
Yeah.
list moves. Yeah, that could be nice.
I don't know what the move we see, man. I'm not gonna.
Just some tries. Yeah, king h8. Apparently it was decisive as well. Queen e5 check. Okay, I don't see the point of this, but I guess he wants to maybe weaken the 2nd rank.
Oh, it allows to bring the knight back.
Also, there's no queen g3 anymore after this. There's no
Yeah.
more pressure.
Yeah. There is a fair few benefits to this.
Okay, but maybe rook f8 now. Yes.
Yeah.
So the queen is tied down on f2.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a better
yeah.
version for sure.
Yeah.
King h8 is a terrible blunder because of knight g6. So
I would be even willing to play queen d5 to second exchange. Like queen takes knight takes rook g5 check, move the king, rook takes d5, rook f2 check, and just win with the extra exchange.
I see.
Like that,
Maybe
just to kill the all counterplay.
That's a good point, actually. We can come back to rook a7, by the way, because that was a good thought that you had. Wow, okay, we had to stop knight g6. That's correct. Right now we are facing a small threat.
I'm pretty sure that queen d5 would be disapproved by the engine, but...
Queen d5, yes, apparently mistake, but maybe not like a terrible blunder.
Yeah, like it's a mistake in the sense that probably the best move is like +6, and queen d5 is like +2, right? But I don't mean to...
I'm just dropping the rook.
I don't mean to, try to save face here, but I'm pretty confident I would win after queen d5.
Right.
And so if I have limited time on the clock, I would just get those ladies off the board.
Yeah. Right now it's actually like -3 advantage to black, apparently.
Oh, okay.
I mean, did he play queen f6 back just to attack f2 again? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You see, queen f2 was iterated, and you also stopped knight g6 at that point. Yeah, nuance. Okay, f4, but f4 looks serious because right now there's rook takes g5 idea on the board, right? I mean, maybe right now
Yeah, but
rook a7 is
now
necessary.
you just do a rook lift and it's all over.
Oof, rook a7 is beautiful. Guys, can you see it? I think rook a7 is maybe the only winning move because rook takes g5, rook g7 is the main point.
Yeah.
And final piece joins the defense. Yes. Yes, sir! I will also get this part, of course. Rook g7. Wow, Andras, look how good we are playing this portion, my friend. This is beautiful. It was a classy trade. Defensive exchange and defensive maneuvering over there. Extra rook for black. Also, the rook is sidelined on h5, yeah? Doesn't
You
do
know
much.
what? You know what's an interesting move here? Knight d3 seemingly blunders queen d5 check, right? But
Yes.
then we block with queen f7, and it also hits the rook on h5.
That's right. That's
I
right.
don't know if that was played, but knight d3 looks very handy because it threatens knight f4.
Even queen b2 is threatened, Andras.
Oh, yeah,
You force a queen trade, right?
Everything is threatened, yeah.
You force everything. Yeah. Wow, knight e3 is so classy. Shall we try? Are there any alternatives? I mean...
Let's make me a complete clown. I'm very happy. I like the idea, so I really hope it...
Okay, apparently there was rook f5.
No, it says my move is good. My move is good.
Also good, because black is clearly winning. Also, yeah, that was also good. Because if rook f5 is the best, we always have queen b2. We force a queen trade, yeah?
Correct.
So we are winning there.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
What did you
So
do?
congrats, knight e3 is a classy technique. What else can be done here? Maybe occupying the open file again, if there is no business on f8, for example, for our rook.
Did you say rook e8?
Yeah, I just tried to improve the piece.
Yeah.
Unless
fair.
there's something. Right?
Yeah.
Your move is okay, apparently. He played queen e6 instead. He's also eyeing the pawn on b3 just in case. What else he's doing? He's avoiding rook f5s maybe.
Yeah, it was
He's also
more to
occupying the
dodge.
open file.
Yeah.
Yeah. Occupying the open file. Come on, take on f4 right now. There's no, just take on f4.
Take f4.
The result 0-1, Andras. The game is finished, my friend.
We beat Fischer.
we beat Fischer after some hiccups, after some oh boy moments. Yeah. You're seeing my screen, right? You're seeing my chess.com screen right now. Okay, that's cool. So let's rotate the board here and look from Spassky's side. So were there some critical moments that, if you have to pick like 2 or 3 key moments, if you look at the engine evaluation, let's say.
It's more like 10 of them, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, there are 10 of them, and we are staying here forever. Okay.
Nah, I didn't say that.
First of all, take on d4 is also a thought, but apparently, yeah, bishop g7 is the more theoretical move, as we discussed, even c5s. Take on d4 is not terrible, followed by c5 is correct, apparently. This was all good. Yeah, you see, knight b6 is objectively not the best move here for black. Engine doesn't like it so much.
See, I scored a lot of points early on.
That's right. So we were actually correct when it comes to our judgment. Apparently, bishop a5 is the second best move, but understandable. Knight d7, this is understandable, not so terrible. b3 is also correct. bg7 is correct. You see, rook b1 was slightly better because of queen f6 ideas, but Fischer sort of plays it very quickly.
b4 best, hello?
b4 is the best. Yes, you're right, Andras. b4 is the best. b4 is the best. So, kudos to you. You did better than Spassky, let's say. Queen f6, rook b1.
Not when it
B4
mattered,
here.
friend. Not when it mattered.
Not when it comes to actually beating him, yes. B4 is the best, your main idea. You see, you're so surprised about knight e2, I remember. You were so surprised. You see, first of all, we talked about rook e7. It failed because of e5. I think
E5,
that's very
yeah, we
instructive.
found that out very quickly.
Very instructive, yeah. Knight e4.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Queen is trapped. Beautiful. Beautiful. Uh-huh. And then we came up with this b4 idea.
Was knight e2 complete garbage here after b4?
Apparently it's second best move according to the engine, on chess.com. Knight e2. Not so terrible. With this a3 idea followed by bishop c3.
Yeah, I totally overlooked a3, of course, which made knight e2 sensible.
Andras, I remember you mentioned h5, attacking the ghost knight. That's the second best move, by the way. It's h5. Okay, yeah. But you see, queen e7 is one of the good moves. One of the idea must be f5, as mentioned, as played in the actual game. Apparently a3 is not the best, and maybe you're right. After knight g3, Spassky was supposed to, let's say, repeat, if it can. Although the engine gives moves like knight c8, which doesn't make much sense.
Actually, it does. You know what it does?
Yeah?
It goes to a7 to b5.
Okay. a7 to b5. Is that your idea?
It's not mine, it's the engine's,
Yeah.
I'm afraid. I didn't see it, but that's the only way to justify it.
Yeah, and maybe white cannot do anything to us yet.
And dude, if I pop up on b5 with that knight, that is gonna
That looks beautiful, yeah.
wreak havoc.
And I guess a4 or a3 business doesn't work because the knight doesn't stand on e2 anymore.
I mean, we probably
there's no
have to,
c3.
because otherwise it's gonna end up catastrophe.
Exactly, otherwise it's just coming
But
to
even
b5.
now, the knight on b5 is gonna be a total boss.
Yeah, this is actually better for black. Okay, so maybe black could, ask some questions. So we thought black has to repeat in some sense.
Yeah, this knight c8 idea completely overlooked in the...
This was beautiful, yeah. Knight
in
c7
the
all the
game.
way to b5. Wow. Okay, so actually there was more point behind b4, yeah? So we totally missed this knight b5 idea behind this move. Wow. Knight e2, queen e7. White is slightly better. a3 takes. Knight, bishop c3 is one of the good moves. Oh boy. f5 is the only good move here for black, actually.
Well, look at that. 95 is
But
still...
even knight e5 is not so terrible. Yeah, you're right, Andras. You mentioned this move. And if they have to take on e5, okay, you're totally correct, I think, about this judgment. We looked at f4. It might be one of the best options for white. Apparently, white has maybe better moves, but this is very forcing. Should be checked by black. And you mentioned queen f6, and the knight doesn't stand so nicely. I remember you talked about this position.
And back is better. So I am maybe crawling back slowly but surely.
Correct judgment. You're coming back to the game, my friend. Yes, you're coming back to this game, and also so logical, yeah, to play knight e5 here to make use of this
F5
piece
was
on
bananas.
b6. f5 is bananas in some sense. We even looked at maybe take and then knight e5. I remember this was a critical moment. Apparently this is not the good version for black, because apparently white doesn't need to even take on e5 and maybe can do different things.
Yep, that's
Interesting.
fair.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's go on. f5 is insanity. Put it on the board. Our main idea was what happens if after takes knight f4. Of course you take on e4. What was wrong with the move
knight
knight e6, right?
e6 is what I couldn't figure out, and queen f7 was my final thought, and I'm so happy with that.
Yeah, you see, we were successful because we thought, then we saw queen f7, I think you saw queen f7.
Yeah, because
and you said,
Fischer played knight h4 and I settled on queen f7. So in hindsight, we are uncovering a lot more, or it turns out that a lot of our ideas were a lot more
correct. Actually correct. We actually saw very good things. Queen f7, what was the main point of this move? You sort of don't give e8 tempo, right? In that line that we looked at.
And also hitting d5 more heavily, and he knight f6.
That's right.
That's exactly what I wanted. So it also vacated the f6 square for the knight.
That's right. The key of queen f7, guys, for our YouTube followers, is knight c7 answered by this move. And this doesn't create tempo on the queen.
Yeah.
Exactly. Wow. That's cool. That's cool. And queen f7 is actually just winning for black, this position. That's why Fischer didn't go for that line.
Yeah.
He chose knight h4 instead. Yeah. But that's already... By the way, bishop takes e4 was a better version for black. But in all these lines, I guess we have knight f6.
Yeah.
Yes, you give up g6, but then you take on d5. That's a major point. And this bishop awakens as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Knight h4, black is already winning. But you see, g5 is maybe the only move that wins.
a2 as well.
Oh my god, there's always on the branches there's A2. Forget about A2. It's just such a distracting
Yeah,
force
exactly.
for us.
That's just a total
But yeah,
bum.
total bummer for guess the moves. Like, yeah, after 10 guesses, then you first play A2, then come back to your first guesses.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We
No,
also looked at knight f6, by the way. This was one of your points. And
Yeah.
give up g6, but take on d5. This
and
actually
correct, man. Like,
this was
hello?
correct. This was beautiful. This was beautiful calculation.
Man, where do I submit my complaint? To the head
Yeah.
office.
Head office, please, please.
Is it
And
Chess
actually-
Base, Bobby Fischer, or Spassky where I submit my
Yeah.
complaint? Or
Yeah.
to you
If-
for recording this.
Yeah, if they create an app like this on chess.com, they should at least take our feedback, seriously. Like, there must be a better way to do it, maybe more instructive while you're doing the exercises, like, yeah, because otherwise you spend more time, of course, as we do, to maybe justify all this.
Right,
maybe
right,
you
right.
actually remember. That would be good to all of your guesses, even thoughts, to be recorded somehow, like recorded somewhere.
yeah.
So you can go back and check. G5 is the best move. Were there any other things that we were concerned about this position? Knight e6, of course, was checked. Even queen f7 is winning, by the way. Queen f6 was chosen. Knight c7 was our major analysis, I guess, right? And but this we were happy, yeah, because we can even take.
Yeah, no,
We
we
can
looked
even
at
take on
Rook
h4 and
E4.
claim
Rook
that
E4 was the concerning line for us.
the concerning line was, of course, Rook e4. What happens if they do this? I remember.
That's when Rook G4 and I called it.
and
winning for
you're
white.
right. You're right. Here we just totally lost.
Yeah.
Also against this, there's Rook g6, which you saw actually.
Yeah, I called this line.
Yes, so Rook takes e4, but then we realized Bishop takes d5, remember?
Yeah,
we
that
realized
was-
Bishop takes
that
d5
was
and Black
you,
is
yeah.
winning. Yes, Black is winning in this line, that's correct. Okay, so we are happy. We are happy that we saw this. That's why Fischer played the move Queen g4 in the actual game. Aha, so Knight takes d5 is the only winning move here. But there's also Knight e5.
No,
as you
95
already
is also
mentioned.
winning exactly with the line that I called
right.
with Rook E7. Not that I want to blow my trumpet, but I'm happy.
Yes,
that
and
that's
Rook
where-
e7 is the key, of course. So these two moves are connected.
So these are all counted
defense
as
here.
wrong for the record.
So that's one point. Guess the move should modify itself so it doesn't count as like clear failures, Like there has to be a better way to do
Yeah,
this
well, as
training.
far as I'm concerned, this is a win, not a loss. Like, I'm
Yeah.
2.5 up. Hello.
For sure.
It's like-
We are winning. We are winning. Yeah. But Knight takes d5. For some
Notwithstanding
reason,
that, of course, 95 is much better.
but here you see Knight f8 is the key, as you already mentioned, Andras,
Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah.
Queen takes e4, Knight f8 is a very good move because of the pin as well. Look at the cross pins and yeah, beautiful. Also, this is going on here.
Having said all this, if you win a game by playing not the best but still winning moves, the 1 point you get in the end is worth exactly the same amount of one as
100%.
when you win for 99.9% accuracy. And
Yeah.
then you have to chat with Kramnik afterwards on top of that. So
Yeah. Yeah, don't mention.
you have to pick
Yeah.
what you want, my friend.
Yep. A2 is correct. Rook B8 is slightly better, but I mean, Knight B4 is apparently we thought was strange, but he took away all the Queen D5 ideas, which sort of explains.
But hold on. Can you take it back?
Promoting was also winning, by the way, which we saw.
It's not even top 3.
Yeah,
I file a complaint again.
we did better than Spassky.
Having said that, A1 Queen and A1 Rook hardly shouldn't count as two different moves.
Exactly. Rook G4. Now we promote with check. That's understandable. Queen G7 return was also very good because you offer a queen trade. There is no Queen D5 check. Here, Queen E5 check was also maybe the winning move directly, but King H8 we also sort of looked at. And here G3, the main point is, there's no more Queen G3 business. That's how we explain
Yeah,
it
that's
to
very
yourself.
nice. That's very nice.
Very technical. And I think
then
this is
Rook
the only
A7.
winning move. But I think this is the only winning move, Rook A7. Yes, my friend, look at this. Rook A7 is the only winning move here.
Yeah.
So we had to sort of, go to this narrow line in this position to
Yeah, we
cover
found
this.
it. Now having
Yeah.
gone through with this game with the engine and comparing our ideas, I feel like we were on the money about 70% of the time. Which,
So
by the way, represents roughly the correct discrepancy in knowledge, because that 30 difference is the key. Like,
That's right.
That's
That's
not
right.
little. That's a lot.
that's a lot. But also we didn't spend as much time maybe as these guys have spent, although we actually took almost 2 hours. Yeah. So maybe that was like a real game. But okay, 70% is probably roughly equal. Like show the strength. Beautiful. So this concludes this entire game. I'm sure I will invite you again, by the way, Andras. So next time we will choose maybe more instructive game, as you mentioned, against a low rate of position, and maybe a shorter game that we can do it together. Just to highlight. But yes, next time we do it better, my friend. Thank you so much for taking this time. Now we have to say goodbye to Australia. Let's finish this off. And if there's anything else that you want to mention, Andras, stop sharing. Yes, we go back to this big board. Thank you so much for your time again, my friend. This is always fun talking to you.
The pleasure was mine, sir. The pleasure was mine.
Yes.
I'm very, very eager to see what feedback you're going to get for this video. Good luck.
That's the first time ever I do this Guess the Move with the master themselves. So we'll see what they will say. And we keep in touch. Yeah, very good, man. Take care. See you.